I move we adopt Resolution 26-802, stating the intention to exceed the revenue neutral rate and setting a public hearing regarding the same for August 27th, 2026 at 7 p.m. and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Council President Hedstrom, second by Councilmember Dwyer. All in favor?
No, roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is a roll call. Council President Hedstrom.
Yay.
Councilmember Baldridge.
Yay.
Councilmember Moreland.
No.
Councilmember Dwyer.
Yay.
Motion passes 3-1. Moving on to new business 9B, Casey's Development Agreement Amendment. City Administrator Jensby.
Mayor and Council, the item before you is a amendment to the developer's agreement for the Casey's location. Our engineering group, PEC, was not able to get the engineering plans to Casey's for the roadway design by June 30th, as stated in the contract. The engineers of both organizations are working together. They're not gonna, they don't need them immediately, and they agreed on a date of September 15th, yeah, of 26 for those. So this amendment just solidifies that date change.
Council, any questions or conversation?
I have two questions. On the original contract, it was a 14-day review period. Is there a reason why it changed to a 21-day?
I think that was a request. They asked
Just-
for an extra week
okay.
to review those.
I just noticed, okay. And then on the amendment, it goes from item 1 to item 3. Is there an item 2 missing, or is it just a okay, I just wanted to make sure that if there was something that had been changed, okay.
Those auto
Okay, yeah, oh, I love auto numbering. So, okay, those are my only two questions.
Any additional questions or discussion, Council? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the amendments as presented and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Baldridge, second by Councilmember Dwyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to 9C, note sale resolution. City Administrator Jensby.
Mayor and Council, the item before you reflects the note sale for temporary notes for the funding of the Huffman Drive project and the 61st Street widening. The bond sale was this morning at 9 a.m. and these are the results of that bond sale. I'll let Andrew speak to the rest of it.
Absolutely. As Matt pointed out, and we talked about this a couple times, both at the May 20th meeting, passed the authorizing ordinance, June 25th meeting, public sale resolution. Public sale, the sale was this morning.
Thank you.
To offer $980,000 worth of temporary notes to fund the project. The city received 3 bids, which are listed bid summary put together by Piper. The lowest bid was from Oppenheimer & Co. with a true interest cost of 969. That's a good so that Clayton was. And so what you have in front of you then, actual note resolution. I will warn you, of course, because the sale happened this morning, the one in your copy in your packet doesn't have the interest rate or who the purchaser is and that. In addition, because the rate ends up, and we're able to refine the numbers based on the sale, principal 70. There, so we have the resolution completed now, where we've got 970 principal the have that resolution. exact document. August. Funds will go into a project fund. Contractors schedule. Happy to answer any.
I
Council,
would
are
say
you
in
good?
this,
Okay.
environment, that is a pretty great.
It's the temp notes tend to be a little bit lower because they're so short. But yeah.
Any other questions or conversation? I would entertain a motion.
Oh, and sorry if I did point out. Note in the agenda memo, there's two motions that were. One is to accept the low bid, and the other is to approve the rest.
Thank you for clarification.
I move that we accept the low bid and authorize the mayor to execute and deliver the bid form.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Moreland, second by Council President Hedstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
I move we adopt resolution number 26801, establishing the terms and provisions governing the city's general obligation temporary notes, Series A, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Moreland, second by Councilmember Dwyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to 9D, USDI Gas System Study Results. Thomas, would you like to introduce our speaker for the evening, please?
Yes, so council, mayor, this is Tyler Lowe, he's with USDI.
Oh, did I say it wrong?
Do
Oh,
what?
did I say it wrong?
I don't know, what'd you say?
Anyway.
I was down here, so.
It's okay. Sorry, my apologies.
Trying to get the computer to work, so I figured I could go, I don't know, Matt, if your Microsoft is on here for your emails, I didn't know if you want to get, I was trying to go through the model and put it on here through my email.
Let me go through it on the jump drive.
But, they were the group who did the modeling for us, so you would wonder why I use a different engineering group. He does not do gas modeling or gas infrastructure, so, we use USDI, we use them as a contractor already. Also, who provided us the plans for going underneath the railroad tracks and plans of which we're still waiting on. Information or from Union Pacific, so, when they get back to us, so, decided to also ask more from this situation. If Matt gets back, I'll let him know, so
Hi.
Oh, my goodness. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Oh, well,
Yes,
thank you. Yeah, and I'll kind of get started a little bit, just, I can kind of explain stuff, and then we can kind of go through it a little bit more. But yeah, so we provided this gas system modeling, so kind of go through that just a little bit so you understand. It's just a network model, it's very similar. There's water ones, there's, sewer models, things like that. Just hydraulic pressure models going through that. And how we do it is we build, taking that mapping from your system, we're able to plug that right in, confirm sizing, put loads in there based on what you guys have seen in, recent years. And, it kind of goes through in the report a little bit of, we really focus on those bigger loads, the industrial stuff, seeing industrial parks, schools, things like that. And then when it comes to your residential load, that kind of gets a little bit dispersed just because winter load, it's acts a little different. It's not really at that high peak that you're going to see. It kind of distributes just because there's, some people are on, some people are off. So it's kind of lower than what you would normally see is, you know, a normal peak load for a house would be 150 cubic feet an hour. We actually run it more in the 60 range because that kind of just floods it out and levels that off so that we get to where we see historical peak usage rates based on data you guys have given. So we build that all out, and actually one thing we were able to prove out was that, you know, we were within, I think, half a pound, half a PSI of what Thomas and them had actually seen in the system. So we got that pretty good and calibrated, and then kind of started from there. Man, they got so many questions. Oh, it's Adobe. They do it every time. It's horrible. So, okay, so just kind of give a little bit of a generalized overview of all of this. So like we said, these are those larger loads that we saw in the system. And kind of give did I go through that? You know, why did we do this? You know, Thomas came to us and wanted to look at what, you know, how prepared is the natural gas system for the future. So, you know, we wanted to look at it in, you know, what do you got now? What do you got coming in the next couple years? You know, do we need to look at really running something quick and figuring out if you have immediate problems? And then go into that 5-year, 10-year growth based on, you know, a reasonable number of additional housing, some additional industrial loads, things like that. I guess a good point would be the possibility of a new school on the system. So we worked through that. We did, like I said, a 5-year and a 10-year. We based those, you know, everybody's seen that growth in Park City and even around here in Bel Air of everything getting closer. So using about 300, I think what we did was 5 years was an additional 300 house subdivision in one area and then a 300 house subdivision in another, and kind of doing the same thing going to 10 and also adding some load into that industrial park where there really is an issue, or where a lot of the bigger load is happening. So just a lot of numbers, but what this really does is we kind of ran multiple iterations with different conditions, really to start with the existing conditions, you know, kind of calibrate out what we're doing, what's been seen in the system. And then, like we said, going into, you know, what we were really worried about is, you know, are you going to have a problem in this winter? And do we need to get something done quick? So we went through that, and, you know, like the report talks about, you guys have already upped pressure in the system to allow for this load. So based on that, you know, going into this year, no issues that are really, you know, need immediate addressing. Just to kind of clarify this, because it gets a little, we ran multiple iterations with different pressures, just so you can see what, you know, if you're starting at this pressure, what would we have lowest pressure wise. We kind of took every iteration set and jumped it up to just basically put it to the limit of the system, so that we can just say, all right, where do we end here and how much can it take? So that kind of gives you a good idea of what's happening at each one. The two other ways we wanted to look at this was kind of limitations of the system. So we'll start there. Right now, the system is fed from an existing station that's been there since, you know, the beginning of the system. It is set with a certain capacity. It was probably pretty overbuilt from the beginning. So you are approaching quite quickly, if not already, to the capacity of that station. So, and one thing to note on that is it's when they list a capacity, it's not that it's not going to be able to give you any gas past that certain point. you're just gonna start seeing limitations. So it's, there is a little extra, so it's not, that's also not an immediate concern, but something that should definitely be looked at for the future. So there's that issue number one, and then part of the issue is where growth is happening in Kechi, with the industrial park being on the other side of the railroad tracks that was never really developed as part of the original system with larger pipe, things like that. So after running through this and going through to, existing system and starting to raise loads, we looked at kind of two different ways of approaching the issues, and one of them being is, like we said, currently you have a 2-inch steel main that's going to cross those railroad tracks. So that's really the choke point. What needs to have, or how would it benefit you to replace that with a 6-inch height or medium density pipe that would provide a lot more capacity, but really how far would that get you? And then there's the other option of what happens when you start exceeding what your capacity is now for that station. So we're gonna look, we wanted to look at, okay, if we upgrade the existing station, what does that look, and how much does that help for the future? And then the possibility of a new take point from your guys' supplier to then backfeed into the system. So you have, 2 feeds possibly, or even just one feed with much more capacity. So looking at that, we kind of, I guess to start with, like we talked about, your current system at this point, with the load you're going to see over the next couple of years, is, has the capacity to deliver gas with no issues, even at those peak times. Looking into 5 years, when we go to, let's say, upgrading the existing station, even adding 6-inch pipe across the railroad tracks, you start seeing a limitation at that 5-year period. So back to, oh gosh, I'm get my numbers straight. So see, at the this iteration is kind of what we're looking at, the 1.1.3. So getting into 5 years, even doing all of that work, you're getting to a point where you seeing his pressures as low as 22 pounds. So obviously that's near what you guys used to operate at a few years ago. The issue is that with this model, it's kind of a steady state model where it brings everything to equilibrium as it states that we're putting it in there. There's always the possibility that you see exceeding loads in certain places at certain times. So you start getting into those lower pressures, you have the possibility of that happening. It kind of strains you, and then also limits what you can do on, year to year, adding, more customers onto the line. So that's kind of where we mark that out in red. Is it's not necessarily saying that's the point you're going to start seeing pressure issues to the point where people are out of gas, but there's that and like short-term future concerns. So at those points. And so kind of contradictory to that, if we go to the point of having a new Southern Star station on the other side of the railroad that comes and backfeeds into town, becomes a higher capacity feed to the system. At those points, sorry, I got my numbers. That's 1.3.
Can I interject real
Yeah.
quick? I just want to do a hearing check real quick. So if we're currently utilizing a 2-inch pipe?
So yes, and it was original system was that, I guess you had a little bit of load on that side of of the system from way back when. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in like, 2003, when they put it on 6-inch line to kind of feed out east of Woodlawn. And basically what they did was they put in a 2-inch poly line, ran it to the top of the hill, and then ran 6-inch out to the top of there. So everything out east is 6-inch.
So that's the choke
So-
point that you're talking about.
Right.
Just-
Okay, I got you now.
That's
Now
kind of
I
the thing.
understand. Now I
So
understand
yeah,
what it's
there's,
all about.
the railroad kind of runs,
Right,
this,
right.
just judging
Yeah.
on this map,
I
there's
get it
just
now.
that short segment of that 2-inch.
I'm on
that-
board now.
It's quite amazing how much of a choke point that becomes, because there's some ways we ran that and we saw, 20 pounds of drop just across
Okay,
that.
okay.
So it makes a very large difference. So the thing is that, just to kind of show the contrast these two. So those 1.3s, those are the ones that's 5-year projection with the new station. So, there's a couple different ways we did that, and, at those load levels, you see no issue. And that's kind of the same point of these 2.3s, that's upping you to, currently you're running around 35 to 40 MCF an hour is total system load. We're showing that, putting that station out there gets you to 1.5 times of what you're using currently and with no issues. So there's, it's kind of one thing I put in the summary of looking at that it's, looking at it from that direction, we can definitely, you guys could definitely upgrade current station, do a bunch of piping work, spend a lot of money on that, and it'll get you somewhere. It's just the question of how far and how long that's gonna be. So, just depending on that growth and also where the growth happens is a big issue too. So, we tried to kind of split it of it happening on each side of the railroad, just to kind of see what happens. And it's, if everything happens to be north of town, that makes a big difference as opposed to anything to the east, north, south, whichever direction. So that's kind of the thing of, I think, put a slight recommendation that if our recommendation would be to really look hard into that new station, so you can add that capacity, be able to serve, for, 20, 30, 40 years into the future more than just kind of more of a 5-year projection. So, any questions? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And thank you for that clarification. It was the choke point that was getting me.
Yes, and it
Yeah.
is. It's yeah, that's kind of the big thing with it.
So you're recommending that we take out that 2-inch pipe and put in 6?
Okay, so,
Keep it consistent, is that?
and
what
let
I'm
me
hearing?
get, well, not necessarily. So, here, let me just, and maybe looking at the maps makes life a little easier, and it'd be nice if we could get super detailed with the maps, but not so much. And this is kind of looking at existing systems. So if you can kind of see where that cursor is, your current town border station's right around, that point down there.
Mhm.
So, like we said, there's the railroad. That's that line. So that's going across the railroad that, like Thomas talked about, there's, still some back and forth with the railroad about getting a new pipeline under there. So number one, there's kind of that choke point issue. With that, there's the possibility, to upgrade this station and I put a estimate together as well, just based off of what Thomas was given, and then some estimates on, running the pipe that's gonna get you to these stations and kind of tie everything in. So one of the options of the going as far as we can is to install a new station there or upgrade that station, then run 6-inch pipe from there, again, at a slightly higher pressure, all the way out to the east side of town. So that you're basically back loop it at that point, because that's where, you know, the issue seems to be. Issue with that is already trying to get across the railroad. You know, issues with that, you're gonna have to cross it at a different point. So then there's the kind of that secondary option where you tie on down here to that Southern Star, that line continues going slightly north, but mainly east-west. So there is the possibility of getting another site where that can be tied in and building a new station, much higher capacity, you know, and based on that estimate and what Thomas has been given, there's about a $300,000 difference in building a new one is to upgrading. So, which is, you know, the 1.5 million for a new station is pretty normal. So that's kind of the point of there's that factor, and then there's, okay, well then what do I have to do to get that there? And from what I got in our estimate, it'd be about a $500,000 project to get gas from that new station up to your existing system in this industrial park area. And then if you wanted to go through the whole process of back looping the system from an upgraded, you're still looking at $350,000 or so or more, depending on when this happens. And at that point, you know, there's still $500,000 is a lot of money, you know, but if you're looking at it strictly from a pressure aspect, you know, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck now, as opposed to, you know, what we've seen. Southern, I know we had a Southern Star station put in, you know, when I started 15 years ago, it was about $500,000. So, you know, when it comes to cost of how much those stations are, how much that pipe, you know, installation costs have gone up in the last 5 years, that's kind of the other point of, you're getting a lot more for that than what you see on that other end. So we did run iterations where all we did was just jump that across, and it helps to an extent, is kind of what we found out. And it's not even to the 5-year, you know, the 5-year projected growth. So.
So the first one that you said to upgrade the current and then the 6-inch line at the railroad track, knowing that what we're facing with that right now.
Yeah.
How much did you said there was a $300,000 difference
So
between
what
the
we
two?
had, yeah, and what Thomas was given, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but the upgraded existing station was about 1.25 million. And then what they gave him was 1.55 for the new station.
Okay. Oh, and the $500,000 was just the piping
And
from
then
the new
there's
station to
the project, and
okay.
part of that being is, you know, and I went in a little detail with the estimate that
Okay.
with that new station, you can get higher pressure. We would put a high density polyethylene line instead of medium density that could run at a higher pressure, then and build reg stations off that, build new ways to feed the system off of it. You know, more for projected growth, because the thing is, you can install the HDPE, run it at over 100 pounds, you know, or you can run it at 60. You can run it at whatever you want. Medium density, you're capped at the, you know, 60 something pounds. So it really makes a big difference there. So that's part of the difference in cost with that being a little higher.
I just want to clarify, make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So for Kechi east of the railroad tracks in the industrial park, if we don't take action, we have significant limitations that will hit us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other question, and maybe it's for Thomas, maybe it's for you, I don't know. So what is our service area? If we begin to expand, say we put in the new station, what is our service area of where we can grow to and serve?
So
currently, they, KCC allows you to go 3 miles outside your. Gracious enough to fill those out and put those in KCA for me. So Black Hills and Kansas Gas Service are fighting off over the coverage area. They're like, well, hey, you guys forgot. So what that would allow us to do is cover that. With our bound. But it allows us to. Yeah. Provide that to them too, plus whatever residue. Not only are we getting choked by, also all those industrial users get to use.
Right.
So, what we put in there, the more cooking, obviously, more.
Right.
But it also provides us with a. So, with our water, if something happens, hillside. This provides us to the current line, feed off of that. By upgrading the 6-inch line, the reason why we're looking at back. If we can cover that area theoretically. Because that was put in 19. So it is, it's getting up there in age.
Right.
Infrastructure does need. I wish I could bond it out. Yeah, it helps us get out there to those areas, this area, or this part of town. So, feel less like you have to worry about waiting to make that
Right.
wherever.
Right.
Then we, the current system, 60.
Right. Right.
Said that regulator station, I thought would be off a new connection. Regulator station, you still run 100 pounds, just cut it down.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, that means if our current eastern border is rock, that means we can at least go out to Greenwich with gas service. Is that correct? Okay. I just want to make sure we're getting a big enough picture of the opportunity. Yeah. As well as all the way up to 100, I mean,
Well, I don't know exactly.
107th?
They're in there, Tyler and them did it. So like 2-inch line, we're only able to provide like 100 per hour
mhm.
max. So when they're using them out there, that's why we're seeing that drop from 45 to down to. Theoretically, we were only allowed to have 705 units a day go through there. We hit.
Oh, wow.
So we put a lot of stress on that initial speed. But even running a 6-inch line, keep there, we'll able to get up to like. Through there. So by pushing a bigger line through.
How old is the regulator station, current one?
It was replayed, so the regulator station moved about 1980 to where it is currently. But I think all the components are still the same.
Okay.
So, the regulators replaced them last year, opened the orifice so we could provide more pressure out of town.
Okay.
Those were about 1,000 regulators. They were put in like 19.
Mhm. Mhm. I know we've talked before about the federal grant opportunities. Do we still, is that still an open window to apply for a federal grant? To assist?
So, yeah, and that's one of the issues with that federal, well, it's an issue for you guys.
Okay.
Because you actually have a really good system.
Okay.
So it's really a lot more for, you know, they have a caveat for getting like technology and things like that
Okay,
to kind of update your system, but it's really for cast iron pipe, old pipe
Okay.
that's listed as, you know, an issue by NTSB or by the DOT. So it's, there's, yeah, nobody's had really good luck at trying to get that for upgrading steel or anything like
Okay.
that. So, yeah,
okay.
that's exactly right. So,
That's okay. So will you have an estimate sheet to distribute to the governing body that we can see like what the costs and options are for discussion?
did I?
It's not in the packet, that's why I asked.
Okay. I was gonna say, I'll
Yeah, we have that. and we can
Great, that would be wonderful. That could be sent out. Yeah. Yeah. So,
I have one really odd question,
okay.
being a math person. Why is a month 24 days and an hour 16 hours?
So that's, the problem is you don't meter hourly or daily or weekly, you meter per month. So to try to put it to the actual peak time, we cut it by 24 days, then 16 hours. So that it's, if we divide it by 30, then 24, it's gonna be a lot lower than what that
Okay.
peak
I
actually
just-
is. So it's, yeah. It gets confusing.
Well,
yeah.
no, I figured there was a good rationale and that it wasn't just you guys going, hey, we'll see if they notice how many
Yep.
days are in a month and how many hours are in a day. But
That would be a good trick.
I appreciate that.
All right.
any questions, any more discussion? Thank you very much for presenting to us. Council, I would request a motion to receive and file.
I make a motion that we receive and file USDI's natural gas model report.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Moreland, second by Councilmember Dwyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, moving on to 9E, Park Board bylaw discussion.
Mayor and Council, Chris is passing out the proposed bylaws for the Park Board. These have been developed, sessions, recommendations from Park Board members about the last year. Since reenacting the Park Board, the bylaws to operate as the city operates, through the hierarchy in the city now. So those changes have been reflected in there. The issue we have currently with the Park Board, the number of people on the Park Board, on the Park Board. So historically, there's split votes on the Park Board, it's 2 or 3 to 3, and they're not able to move anything forward. City code provides that the city council change, make amendments to bylaws, Park Board. What I'm asking the city council to do is receive this meeting, review them, and have them back on the agenda for the next meeting. Because we really need to change bylaws to move the Park Board forward.
So I do have a question. At the meeting on Monday, there were 4 members there at the meeting, and somebody made a motion, but nobody seconded it. So it didn't go to a motion. There was no tie. Okay. So, okay. Okay.
Council, any discussion?
I, I'm not sure what my question is. So what are the fundamentally the biggest changes that are being addressed?
One of the biggest changes is the staff members who are required to report for public works. Thomas and I had discussions. There really is no need for a public works director at a park board unless there is the discussion on the park board. So the way the city operates now, all staff members have a liaison, Paul, who comes to park board. Tries to be at all the meetings out there, have a city to bring forth.
So based on some of the meetings that I've listened to, I think in this last Monday meeting as well, some of the discussion was how is that information requested of Thomas getting back to the park board? Because I felt like from what several of the members had said was they didn't feel that that information that was being asked of him with his expertise was being relayed. So if he was there, would he be able to relay that information? Because in the past, that was one of his roles, was he was very knowledgeable with what happened at the park. He's very knowledgeable with many of those aspects, and that was why it was originally lined out that he would be the designated staff member for that.
Yeah, information is through me to him. Park board projects and regular things we talk about in meetings. That information would come from me if there's a request from the park board, Thomas or other.
And I guess with only one member of the park board here tonight, to respond to that, I'm not gonna ask it out. I mean, were these changes directed by the park board feeling there was a need to be changed, or were these directed otherwise?
Combination.
No other questions?
Anything else, council?
Review and come back next.
Yeah, review and my request would have this.
Well, the park board won't meet before the next council meeting, though. So we're not gonna put this back for them when they have a full slate? Because I know they had,
My request is council.
okay.
Okay, moving on to 10, council reports, discussion, requests. Are there any requests or discussion this evening?
I have a follow-up from a request I made in May where I had asked, and I know that Mr. Jensby, you were not here at that meeting, but I had requested information on the Cora requests because we had seen based on a Facebook post that prior to May, we had not been charging for Cora requests, even though there is a line for that in the fee resolution. And I was just curious as to how much we felt the loss of income was on the Cora requests received that weren't charged.
Well, we continue to have more for requests. Taking copious amount of staff time to fulfill those, so we need to cover our cost.
Oh, no, that's not my question. My question is, why weren't we charging that? Okay, that was,
I don't think we ever were. We were
Okay, that was,
We had always operated on the basis of trying to provide people information
Okay.
if we could, but when they're just
I,
huge requests may take hours and hours.
and they should be being charged based on the hourly? Because I know that in the past, we had said this was the estimated value of our time for that. But in May, and beginning of May, there was a Facebook post that the city will now start to charge for those. And it was reported that we had not been charging for those. And that was my question, was, okay, well. Okay, I will testify that that is not correct, because I have charged this woman next to me.
I've been charged before now.
I have charged several people. So we don't know where it's being coded then. Okay,
Took one in miscellaneous, put on subject.
okay, because I thought there was, and that was what I had asked, was, is there a line item that goes for those so that we could, okay. So we don't, and that's just, where, and you don't, but when you code them, you just code them to miscellaneous? Okay. Because I thought there was a records request line, but not general. Okay. And my next question is going to be more towards Andrew, and I'm trying to find my notes. Okay. So at the, and I know you were not here for our workshop last week.
Okay.
And I just had a question because Mr. Lasher had presented some of our duties and responsibilities, and he presented the roles and responsibilities of the mayor. And under KSA 12-10A07, one of the, and it says that the mayor shall appoint the head of all departments subject to confirmation by the city council, and such department heads shall serve at the pleasure of and report directly to the mayor.
That
So-
statute doesn't apply to cities of third class.
Okay,
The
that
third
was what
class
my
would be under
question.
Chapter 15.
Okay, so that was what I thought, that was a contradiction to what we had. And I knew that there's ways that we do charter ordinances and things like that. But when he presented that, I thought that is not something that we had seen before. So I just was curious as to how that worked.
Doesn't apply to our class.
Okay.
And I do think that
Okay.
the city of Kechi, I'd have to go look it up to be certain, but I know that there are even some of those Chapter 15 sections started out from
Yes,
over
well,
the years
and,
as we've, as things have been changed.
well, and I did, and I knew that we had referenced that in several prior.
Right.
But then, like I said, when these were the 12 dashes,
Yeah.
I was, and the way that it was presented to us, I had,
Fair question.
No,
You said that
so-
too, it's a fair question.
okay, so, thank you.
Clarification.
Yeah, I just was like, because we have, I mean, obviously, we don't follow that, so, and we haven't for quite some time, so. All right, that was just my clarifying question.
I just have a request that the current park board bylaws indicate that if there is a vacancy, that the city shall publish the vacancy. And if that could be done, if you need me to send specific information so it can get published out, let me know and I can take care of that with you.
We will put it on the city website.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. Any other discussions or requests, council?
I have a request that we try to make an effort to keep council meetings to 2 hours maximum. I just think, I have kids at home, I've got a job, a full-time job, and we're spending a lot of time on things that could have been taken care of prior to the meeting. That's just me, and if I'm alone, then I'll shut up, but we're now over 2 hours. throwing it out there.
Is it
I think if
possible to do something limiting that?
if that's the will of the council, we could probably have Andrew draft an ordinance limiting the time. Legalities behind that.
I mean, it's legal, there's a lot of consideration. It's possible. Think through effects of it. It'll be 2 hours unless that's legal. On policy.
Sure, I understand, and I'm just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
no,
It's just 5 AM comes early. You know,
We can have Andrew draft a draft
Certainly
policy
can, and
for
then we
you to
can have
review and
discussions.
discuss it.
Well, in honor of that, I will skip the mayoral report tonight and we will move into executive session.
Madam Mayor, I move we go into executive session per State Statute 754319B1. The subject to be discussed during the executive session is non-elected personnel. The justification for closing the meeting is discussion related to non-elected personnel matters, and the time and place in which the open meeting shall resume is 9:25 in the City Council chamber.
Second.
Motion by Council President Hestrom, second by Councilmember Baldridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4. As we return to the regular meeting, I want to remind everyone that pursuant to Kansas open meeting statutes, no binding action was taken by the city council while in executive session. Before we move to adjournment, I guess the question I have is Malon referenced a workshop. So I'm not quite sure what,
Yeah, we'll get that set up and provide the date. We'll have to go through requesting special.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move
Sorry, go ahead. It's all you, man. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Dwyer, second by Council President Hedstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Have a nice evening.
Take care, all.
You too. Have a great vacation.
I'm gonna try. It should be.